There's new exclusive reporting out today, September 5th, from the Wall Street Journal that RFK Jr. is directing Health and Human Services to link autism to Tylenol use in pregnancy and to folate deficiencies. The Wall Street Journal is saying that Kennedy's autism report, which is touted by Trump as bigly and amazing or whatever, will suggest that using the pain reliever Tylenol during pregnancy might be linked to autism. I realize I'm making a lot of videos today and yesterday about RFK Jr., and that's because I firmly believe he is one of the most dangerous men in this regime. He's an incompetent boob. He's also a malicious eugenicist, and he is in charge of the health and medical research for 340 million people. He is wholly unqualified. He does not have an MD. He does not have an MPH. He has zero experience, expertise, training in public health at all. He's a Nepo baby lawyer who has spent the last 20 years grifting in the snake oil salesman wellness industry ecosystem, spreading debunked disinformation about autism and vaccines. I have a lot of videos on RFK Jr. on my YouTube, both from before the election and after, because he is profoundly, profoundly dangerous, and I think too many Americans underestimate him. I do think a lot of people have felt like RFK Jr. is kind of bumbling and inept and, maybe well-intentioned, especially because he tries to align himself with health and wellness. And people don't understand how that's all about eugenics and white supremacy. If you're one of those folks who thought that RFK Jr. was somewhat innocuous, I really encourage you to go watch my videos on the Senate hearings from yesterday. Or if you have the stomach for it, go watch the whole Senate hearing in its entirety. Because RFK Jr. was showing his true colors in that hearing. He was smug, antagonistic. He basically was posturing like, y'all can't do anything to stop me. He was basically like, I'll do whatever I want. And that includes implementing eugenicist policies, destroying public health, making significant changes to the HHS and CDC, NIH that will result in the deaths of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans. But I want to get to this new reporting today from the Wall Street Journal about Tylenol and folate. RFK Jr. has had a deep loathing of autistic people for a long, long time. He has regurgitated Third Reich useless eater rhetoric about autistic people for a long time. Earlier this year, I have a video about it on my YouTube, he made claims that autistic people don't work and can't pay taxes. Fuck you, my autistic husband has 3 master's degrees. He works, he has a family, he pays taxes. He wants to put autistic people on work farms. He wants to eradicate autism. He doesn't view it as a neurotype. He doesn't view it as a developmental disorder. He views it as an aberration, as like a pestilence caused by environmental toxins. He's straight up said as much. So today we're getting reporting that a man who has no medical training whatsoever, he's not a scientist, he's not a researcher, he has no degree in public health or in medicine at all, is directing Health and Human Services to take up medical disinformation about autism as their official position. As the spouse of an autistic person, as the parent of an autistic person, I'm enraged by all of this. We all should be enraged. There is no credible research that links a mother's use of Tylenol while pregnant to an increased risk in autism for her child. I'm going to get to the folate claim in just a minute. Let's go ahead and tackle that Tylenol claim first. Again, as a former member of the crunchy mom community, I believe they call me a scrunchy mom who believes in science, who has always vaccinated my children. I believe in evidence-based practice. I have a lot of friends who are vaccine skeptics. I have a lot of friends who believe tremendous amounts of disinformation and misinformation about autism. People who are fearful, who are looking for answers if their child is autistic, and also who view autism as something like inherently bad, and they want to protect their child from developing it. The bias around autistic people, the ableism around autistic people in American society is pretty strong. I mean, a eugenics mindset is not something new in this country on either the left or the right. And I have to say, as somebody who has 4 children, right, I've been pregnant a lot. There are so many fears about what you're exposing your child to. There's so much mother guilt in this country. Moms are blamed for anything that's wrong with their kid. It's definitely not systemic issues. It's definitely not big corporations polluting. It's definitely not genetic factors outside your control. It's always about blaming the mom. So being a pregnant person in the United States is something that is really anxiety-inducing in the first place and loaded with shame and judgment. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that some of that lingering guilt and apprehension and also distrust of the medical establishment persists because of the thalidomide scandal in the United States and worldwide. But this claim that like maybe Tylenol is the reason that kids are autistic, that we have more kids being diagnosed with autism, that's been around for a while. And RFK Jr. perpetuates this idea that there are more autistic kids than there were in the past. There must be some environmental toxin or contamination or something moms are doing to produce more autistic people than we had 40, 50, 60 years ago. No, motherfucker, we just have better diagnostic criteria. We are better at identifying autistic people. There are not more autistic people in the population than in decades past. The fact that more people have been getting diagnosed in recent decades is evidence that we are actually doing a better job of supporting autistic people than we did previously. But RFK Jr. doesn't know how to interpret statistics. He doesn't understand any of that. He just understands his snake oil wellness grifting eugenicist propaganda. Now he's trying to make it public policy for the American people. I do want to point out here, this false belief that Tylenol causes autism was so prevalent that there were a number of lawsuits that were brought. Were consolidated into what's called a multi-district litigation. I'm not a lawyer. I don't really understand how that all works. But in 2023, a judge dismissed all of those lawsuits, saying that the plaintiffs failed to bring forth any credible evidence of their claim. Yeah, you heard that correctly. The plaintiffs brought no credible evidence establishing a link between Tylenol usage during pregnancy and autism spectrum disorder in children. So after the story broke this morning in the Wall Street Journal, according to Investopedia, Tylenol's stock is down 11%. Rather, I should say Kenvue, the company that owns Tylenol, their stock dropped 11% today. It sounds like Kenvue may have the grounds for a lawsuit there. Now, I want to get into the second claim. RFK Jr., again, wholly unqualified, no experience, no training. He's not backing anything he says up with science. He's trying to push positions, policies for 340 million people that are entirely without merit and will actively cause harm. So this claim that folate or folic acid deficiency is responsible for autism. I spent a little time this morning before I decided to film this video reading through a literature review about this claim. Folic acid and autism, a systematic review of the current state of knowledge. This is a peer-reviewed journal article from Cells. Now, for those of you that aren't in the Crunchy Mom community, you may not be aware of the hubbub around the MTHFR gene mutation and how much wellness grifters were spinning and spreading misinformation about that gene mutation. Everybody seemed to think that people like to call him motherfucker, MTHFR gene mutation was responsible for their child's autism. The lit review here also examines phenotypic expression of that gene mutation and whether that might change the need for folic acid supplementation during pregnancy. One of the problems that the researchers here notified him, and by the way, speaking of autism, my autistic kid was commenting the other day that without autistic people in our population, who would do all the literature reviews? Because, I don't know, if you don't have autistic people in your family, if you're not an autistic person, maybe it's difficult to understand how autistic people have a lot of strengths and how the autistic neurotype is one that brings diversity, positive contributions, unique abilities, unique perspectives, and yet RFK Jr. views it as a scourge, as an epidemic. Anyway, this lit review identified that a number of these studies had significant bias and also very small sample size, and some of them looked at folate supplementation and neurological and brain disorders in animals, which cannot be equated with autism, but they sure tried. People sure try to equate those. This lit review found that the studies are incredibly mixed. Some research shows that folate supplementation was correlated with an increased risk of autism. Some showed no difference. Some showed a decreased risk. The studies also really failed to account for a genetic component. The conclusions of this lit review were basically we need to do a whole lot more research. We don't actually know. I also want to point out here, as any good piece of scientific research does, these folks said they had no external funding. They declared no conflict of interest. They were not funded by big folic acid or whatever. I personally think what we need right now in this moment to protect not only the health of America's children, of our public health policy, of the future of medical research in this country, to protect potentially millions of lives, is we need a vocal, organized protest against RFK Jr. There are Republicans that are waffling on him pretty hard because they see what they supported and they have big regrets. I think this is a moment. This is our chance to stand up and speak out, educate people about how dangerous RFK Jr. is, how he's going to hurt an awful lot of people, and that we can actually do something about it.